Let's quickly chat about this week. The US has a new president. You might like him, you might not like him, but he's now the ruler of one of the most important nation of the world. And the most interesting thing to me was how extremely plugged in the Trump administration is into the zeitgeist of the US, especially zeitgeist of media. They are one of the first to fully understand that pretty much mass media nowadays means podcast.
She would, every time she'd see me, I'd be in the theater or something, and she says, "You have to be on the show again. Come on, let's go. We have
She loved you.
To love me."
They basically won through that. They're highly, I think one of the most important political influencers right now is Dana White. So the Trump administration really understood this.
Couldn't stop him. He keeps going forward.
And I think that's one of the reasons they had this really, really strong election cycle. A part of the fact that the US has, as every country in the world, huge inflation. One thing that was mind-blowing to me as, a person who thinks of politics as something very distant, is that all of a sudden I see my Twitter feed in the White House. And it was a very interesting thing. So you have people like the Logan brothers and Sam Altman chatting together. And the other thing that I found kind of fascinating is that the whole inauguration was also kind of an showing tech. I'm not calling it let's call it neurodiversity to the public, and especially how funny this looks sometimes on pictures. This picture, imagine you saw Sam Altman and the Logan brothers currently pitch you on their latest coin, their latest scam, their latest old person they want to punch, or something like that. Holy crap. Also, it's kind of like the kickstart of the Broligarchie. So, in the US, in Russia, you have the oligarchy. In America, you have the Broligarchy. All the tech bros and all the billionaires are now very, very close with the government. This might be really, really exciting. The pro case here is really, really exciting. Tight cooperation between the most important industry and the basically world-defining technology leaders and the government could be amazing. But oligarchy in many other countries didn't work out so well, so TBD. In any case, I thought it's really, really interesting how much the vibe shift here is, and now that pretty much every tech leader basically just put in $1 million into this big party and kind of let's call it kiss the ring of Trump to make sure they're in good favors, especially Mark Zuckerberg here, who kind of did this whole Joe Rogan huge shift to make sure they're basically not dismantled by the FTC, right? To make sure that they are not one of the targets of the GOP revenge, basically. Obviously, there's a lot of funny situations. This was one of my favorite, where you kind of see how very different people react to very long sessions. Obviously, there was a lot of other social awkwardness, and I personally really, really like social awkwardness. I don't want to go into all of that, Let's check in 6 months what that one meant. I hope he's just socially awkward. As an Austrian, I hope I don't have to claim, a cultural appropriation here. So one important topic that's becoming more and more clear here, with this whole context of tech becoming closer to the government. Whenever somebody, when anything is important, in the US, it's becoming a war, the war on terror and everything else. To me, it's interesting because this could also mean if you have all these Broligarchs really, really close with the government. So it's now with AI and huge data centers and all this kind of stuff, and the AI Cold War against China, is this becoming basically the new military complex? And I have one big question about all of this. And that's shouldn't we call it a AI race? Shouldn't we collaborate globally and so on and so on? This is my question. My question is, who the fuck gives Masa still money? Who the hell gives him still money? I'm as an investor myself, I shouldn't throw stones. People do bad investments, but Masa is let's call him very opinionated on investments, and SoftBank made a ton of crazy investments. How does this actually work? This is a ton of money. Nobody has 500 billion ready. This is not how investments works usually, you basically have capital calls, you have multiple stages, you commit to and then you raise in the back end and so on and so on. More importantly, one thing that's really fascinating to me right now over the last, I would say, year, if not longer, we are basically now in a global economic crisis. And people in the US basically do not acknowledge that, And to me, the most interesting expression of that is actually how isolated countries now become. America basically it starts with a lot of tariff thinking, And in reality, they won't be the first, they won't be the last, this will be more and more. But what's to me personally really, really interesting is this whole thinking in the US. It's America is the best, everybody else sucks. And what do we do in Europe meanwhile? As usual, self-flagellation. Oh, we suck. Like, oh, politicians suck. Nothing gets done here. Everything is horrible. Like the typical passive, typical complaining, the typical everything sucks but me mentality, and very few get going forward momentum. And that's very, very typical European. And to me, it's just like funny how this is like always true, and especially now again. One thing that's true is that we're now living in a time of economic mega blocks. So you have like all these huge countries acting as like one unified block with their own interest at first, you know? And personally, I think as Europeans, we have like, we have two choices. Either we essentially unite as a block and like act as one block, or we just accept that we will lose to US, China and India and hope that the individual countries like kind of keep and pay. But like realistically, we will need to accept that we will lose our position, that we will lose our standard of living unless we are actually competitive. And this is not so much only to have like, you know, like a thriving economy. This is also like to be a breeding ground for these companies, because right now, if you can choose to go to like a very highly unified, highly effective, highly dynamic market to start your company, or in a highly fractured small market with like a lot of other regulational concerns, which one will you pick, right? So this is we're like now in the age of like global power law. Everything is global power law right now. And we basically as Europeans have to figure out either a way to work together, closer as one block, or pretty much just accept that we're gonna. We should basically think like a developing country would think about this, big, bold moves, okay? So, but anyway, good news, mega blocks, okay? We are screwed. Little tiny countries kind of pretending to work together, but in reality not. What are we doing? The good thing is at least the president agrees. So the president went to the World Economic Forum in Davos. If you are now surprised that the World Economic Forum of Davos is still a thing, this means either you're below 30 or you don't work in the business of cocaine and escorts, okay? Either is possible, okay? But Davos is still a thing. People still meet there, and they do love to talk about startups. There's very few actual founders there usually, but like they love to talk about startups there. And she said like something really, really important. It's now all about continental scale. It's the greatest asset we have in our market. It's the greatest tool we have, especially now in a world of giants. And she said something else.
We will make sure to create a conducive environment for our SMEs to scale up their capacity to build, to produce and innovate in Europe. But I want to go even further than this. Today, the European single market still has too many national barriers. So sometimes companies are dealing with 27 different national legislations. We will offer instead to innovative companies to operate all across our European Union under one single set of rules. We call it the 28th regime. Corporate law, insolvency, labor law, taxation. One single and simple framework across our union. This will help bring down the most common barriers to scaling up all across Europe, because continental scale is our greatest asset in a world of giants.
She just said that they will introduce a 28th regime for basically a company that works across Europe, pan-European legal entity. In case some of you have heard about this, you know, we call it a EU Inc. Fucking amazing. Like legit. Holy shit. Okay. Obviously, we as EU Inc. now have to do the whole European humble shit. Okay. So bear with me. We as European EU Inc. cannot take all the credits. Like multiple associations have been pushing this for years, especially, for example, Roma startups and Dutch startups who have like got this into the letter report. The 28th regime itself is so old in Brussels as an idea that it's basically a meme. So when we started this, everybody told us this wouldn't be possible ever, okay? They basically told us like, yeah, it's a great idea, but will never happen. All of them. They kind of went this direction anyway. But I think one of the main things we as a EU Inc. managed to do is at least that we got the spotlight on this. So it's not one of 100 solutions or a little sentence or a maybe if, but like one of the core solutions. And I think that's freaking huge, okay? And I want to give a big shout out to all the associations, for startup associations in Europe who did a frack ton of work here. I want to give a shout out to everybody who helped on EU Inc. This is far from being done, but it's a very, very big step. And like, this is a fucking celebration right now. And actually some of the team afterwards are going for beers to celebrate this. Anyway, so it will become reality. Fingers crossed, okay? Number 2, knock on wood. Number 3, throw salt. So, like, you know, for quick context, we were like very humble. We were very compromise-ish, you know. So basically, we argued we want to have corporate law for incorporation, investing, stock options. We wanted that part on 28th regime so that you can do pan-European investing, pan-European whatever, that you can do all this kind of stuff. But taxes and employment still on member state level, for a simple reason: member states are very, very nervous that their big companies will just pretend to be a bunch of small companies now and take all the revenues, sidestep regulations, all this kind of stuff, especially countries like Germany, obviously. So our idea was basically, no, there's no reason to do that, because you only get corporate law, standardized taxes and regulation of around employment is still very much local. She now asked for even taxation to be on 28th regime, which is way bigger. But look, the problem is, as soon as you do this, the countries get nervous. And as soon as you do this, you have to define it as like something only for innovative companies, right? Or something for a certain group of people, so not like the big Siemens of Europe take it, you know? We didn't ask for that because we are not sure how you would define an innovative company. Like, how the hell do you define a startup? Like, legit, if you define a startup today, tomorrow the next generation of startup will look different. So I freaking don't know. We will meet the team next week again of the task force to discuss what they have in mind here. Keep in mind that a lot of stuff in politics is also like sometimes just pushing bigger and then compromising smaller. So maybe that's just like tech strategy. I freaking don't know. In any case, shit's getting real. Okay? And I said this multiple times on this stream, and I want to say this again. Everything is impossible until people actually do it, and then it's inevitable. Okay? Everything is impossible until some people are already doing. Obviously, that being said, you know, in the US, $500 billion in AI just per one company. In Europe, we get a new legal entity. I mean, I don't know. Yay, you know, this is great. I don't know.